Hey, what's going on, guys? It is Tom with Innova Digital here. We just hit the 1 year mark of opening the podcast studio, which is what most of you guys know me for. And so today I wanted to go through my experience over this past year of running the studio. What I learned, some of the mistakes I made, some of the plans we have for the future, and kind of where I see the business going and things that we can do to improve our offering in 2023 here. So here we go. So this year we did over 120 podcasts, and there's probably more that weren't quite counted or considered, but that's a pretty safe estimate as far as that goes. Our average month was $2,346. Our high was $5,405, and the low was $450, and that was pretty much from the first month that we were in business. In terms of expectations for the year as to the reality of how things ended up, I think the first year in, and for something that was an add-on, just a kind of a passive, more or less, job, or at least an addition into my current business, I think it definitely met expectations, if not kind of exceeded them. I thought that it would do enough to pay for the space. And that was kind of the initial goal. And we pretty much hit that immediately, which was huge, and pretty much I think every month since. In general, I just wanted to say that I think it was a good thing to bring into the business. I think I spent a lot of the year just kind of passively rolling with the punches and, hey, people want to book with us, great. I was not hounding people down on sales. I am hoping to 3 times basically what we did this year, this upcoming year. How I plan to achieve that is a couple of things. Most of our clients were just purchasing the time itself. We had a couple of people purchase packages with us, so we were doing the editing and the post-production, but I would say the vast majority of clients were just paying that flat rate just to get their own files. And I think if we converted a lot of those people, that would increase our numbers. And I think if we were just better about pitching people in those scenarios that are just booking that with us, to, hey, let us handle the post-production too, and let us partner with you a little bit more to get your podcast better and smoother and better opportunities coming your way. I think that would ultimately help people more, and obviously ourselves as well. I think that sort of engagement, it being a little bit whether it's retainer-based or package-based, is gonna be stuff that we're gonna be pushing. One thing that we don't do now that I would like to be doing in the future is the publishing side of stuff. So as of now, you can have us shoot it, you can have us edit it, but we won't post anything for you. And I think for some people, that's fine. People can post their own stuff, but I'm thinking for some of our bigger corporate clients, they'd probably like to have everything be done kind of autonomously and us a little bit more intricately a part of their team. So services like that, services like helping people come up with the idea creation and just the strategy behind their podcast. Currently, we do some of the branding elements to do an intro or lower thirds and stuff like that to help make it seem a little bit more put together. I would like to partner with people from the start a little bit more, especially on the business side, to just make sure that they're not sitting down and talking about whatever. I think that the podcasts that have a little bit more of a theme, a little bit more of a direction, a little bit more of a strategy behind them, ultimately are gonna do better. And I think that if you leave it up to people, sometimes they have no idea what to do with it. They could be super entertaining, interesting stuff. They could be knowledgeable in what they're talking about, but they don't necessarily know how to frame an interesting conversation around it. One of the very exciting things that we are doing for next year is we're building out at least another set. By the time you guys see this, it should be probably getting close to finished. We have done all the renderings and figured out, we've moved things around the studio. And basically we're gonna take this front room that was once the lobby, we'll call it, or where you could sit, hang out. The vanity was over here. We're kind of reconverting everything to be a little bit more functional. So as you can tell, this new space is gonna be kind of my talking head setup here. If clients wanted to use this, fine. I don't know if they'd probably want to have the VA in the background, but maybe we could do a backdrop or something here. But it's actually right over there that there's a blank wall that'll soon be filled up with a really cool idea. And I'm really excited about that for a couple of reasons. My idea behind doing this set number 2 was a couple of things. One, we needed to have a place that we could use for doing single person content, whether it was just talking head videos, people being guests on other people's podcasts. We wanted to have a better setup for just a single camera and a single person chatting. And until now, we didn't really have a great option for that. Before, we'd have to set up just a center camera at the podcast space, and you'd have to shoot into the curtain. And while it worked, it just didn't look that visually interesting. So we wanted to get away from that. And we also realized that we needed to have a space that could operate just with one camera, because while I'd love to have a second set with the same setup where it's 3 cameras, we live switch and stuff like that, at this time, I don't find it financially viable to purchase 3 new cameras, 4 new mics, do a whole big setup again. And honestly, we might not even have the space for it currently here. So we needed something that could be versatile for 1 to 2 people. And so underneath me here, there's a standing moving desk that we're gonna use for a lot of things moving forward. And this way people can do single solo talking head stuff, or if they want to do a co-host or a dual host show where they're talking a little bit more to the camera opposed to each other. We are really looking forward to that. That's going to be a new option for people to use. It should be a new attraction. This whole front room is gonna get kind of reconstructed to be more of a creative space and less of a lobby. And we think that for my own videos as well as for other people, it's gonna be a huge benefit to them. One of the other opportunities that I see for this in the coming year is consulting for other podcast studios. And so obviously when I posted this video, it garnered some traction. And I've had a lot of people reach out to me either on Instagram, calling me, DMing me, whatever, asking about, could you help me with this, or just tech support questions and stuff like that. And for most general tech stuff, shoot it down in the comments below. I've replied to just about everything at this point. And so I'd be happy to handle that. So I've had a couple engagements with individuals in the community already that paid me to basically run them through things, give them some ideas, and then even as so much as a local company in the Chicago area had a space dedicated to podcasting. They came out here, they did 1 episode, but they're like, hey, we have a space like this at our studio, but we just don't have the know-how to finish putting it together and getting it up and running, basically. And I think as time goes on, a lot of businesses are gonna start pursuing that a little bit more. And so I'm hoping to position myself in this company in a way that we could essentially take on a budget, build out a studio for you, at least from the gear perspective, and be like, all right, you wanna spend this much money? We can get you 3 of these cameras, we'll link it up with this, we'll do all this, we'll come in, we'll set it up, and probably just have either a flat fee or a percentage of the budget allocated towards that. And then something that I've thought about, and I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on it, is I know this industry, and I'm one of very few people that has a rentable podcast studio, video podcasting studio, out right now. There's not that many of people doing this. And so with that, I have a kind of unique skill set. And I'm curious if I was to package it in a way, kind of coupled with extra content that's not on YouTube, as well as kind of one-on-one coaching calls. And even as far as to I'll help you again, get a gear list going, and you can send me photos of your space and I'll be like, oh, I think you should do this, I think you should do that. Doing consulting work like that is something I would consider. If you guys think that that is something that you might be interested in, definitely leave a comment and I pursue that a little bit more. All right, so another thing I'd like to comment on is the new gear that we kind of added to the podcast setup. And for most people that saw part 1, a lot of it has remained the same. But a couple of things have changed. When it comes to the podcasting area itself, we did decide to go with boom arms. As of now, we just have 2 of them. A good chunk of the podcasts we record are just with 2 people, and so this works great. They can, they just function pretty well, and I thought that they'd be more of a visual distraction than they ultimately ended up being. In fact, I think they look kind of cool, especially just 2 of them. We've been hesitant to do 4 ones, and I think if we do get 2 more, they're gonna be like the low profile ones. But for when we have podcasts with 3 or 4 people, now we just bring out the old bottomed stands that we have, and that seems to work fine. But the boom arms, I think the reason I really ultimately decided to do it is I wanted people initially to be up at the table and engaged. And when you have the tabletop microphones, essentially if people are leaned back, they're not gonna get nearly picked up as much. And it was a constant struggle to basically continue to yell at people to be like, hey, you gotta be within a couple inches of the mic for it to really sound good. And people would, start off like that, but then they'd start to fade back, and then they go further back, and then, their audio goes to shit, right? So with the boom arms, it can move to them. It can, it's just a little bit more versatile. I think it looks good. And for like $100 a piece, I think it was money well spent. On the topic of that as well, it was pretty, not clear, but a lot of people that do systems like these with pod mics or SM7Bs end up getting cloud lifters. And so that was something I was planning on doing, but at the time I was like, that seems more money than it was worth. But we noticed that like even maxing out this stuff, it just wasn't getting us quite the level of gain that we wanted. And so I ultimately ended up ordering the 4-channel cloud lifter. I'm not sure the name, but I'll link it below. And I ordered it off eBay. I've been like, I don't know, cheap about it, but like I've been good about just finding used gear. And to me, it's like if it works, it works. So bought a cloud lifter. It's strapped into the desk underneath, kind of out of sight, although it has a lot more cables going on now, but that has been a huge addition. I think that it has definitely helped out, one, just get a healthier audio level, but I think it also has slightly reduced some of the reverberation and echo and just other noise. And I think it just gives us that headroom that we were seeking initially. So another thing kind of sound related, we ended up getting 10 nice custom sound panels done, and we kind of put them throughout the studio. So there are 2 of them at the podcast area itself, and then the majority of them are actually in the back room, which is where a lot of the open space in our studio was, and I think that that's where a lot of the echo was coming from. And honestly, even that, I think it improved things, but it didn't drastically improve things. That will probably continue to improve the sound deadening around the studio. For people that do speak up on the microphone, it works great. I think especially for people that are listening to what we produce off of a cell phone or anything like that, you cannot hear any sort of like background noise. The very smart people or the very the audiophiles among us will can listen to it sometimes and be able to hear some of the room noise that goes along with it. I think I said in video 1 and 2 that it's a big open space, it's a lot of concrete, and it's tough to completely deaden things. Another big thing that we did this year, kind of at the end of the year, which was a mistake, is a scheduler finally. So leading up until this point, you could not pay online, it was all by appointment, and so you would have to submit a form. I would respond, say, hey, what's up? Yes, I'd love to have you at our podcast studio. What dates work for you? And then once we decided on a date, I'd have to go into Square, which is our invoicing software, write up a custom invoice basically, email it to them, they'd pay, we'd be officially locked in. But that process got a little tedious, and for clients that were consistently booking with me, it just got to be like an annoyance, I think, for everyone. And so finally on our website now, we have a calendar integration that just links up with my Google Calendar. So anytime that we're on other shoots or I have other clients in, we'll be blocked off. You can set a whole bunch of parameters as far as when your availability is, when you would want to take sessions. You can put even like ghost sessions in there, make you look busier than you actually are and stuff like that, which we're not doing. But now we can also take payments directly, which I think is a huge thing. We used to have people submit forms. Great, they want to do this time. I'd email them, hey, sounds good. Let me just lock this in. I'll send you an invoice. Does that sound good? Crickets, ghosts. So now, obviously you can still contact us, but if you are serious, you can pick the time slot. It'll take your money right there. You'll get an email confirmation. I'll get a confirmation on my end, and you'll be good to go. So I'm really looking forward to that. I think that'll take a lot of the headache out of the scheduling side of things moving forward. What's up, everybody? It is Editing Tom here. 2 things I forgot to mention. 1, we got 2 floor lamps that are kind of RGB by a company called Govee. We used to have a couple of lights kind of act as some spill in the top corners of the video just to give it a little bit more interest. And since we moved some stuff around, we had to move those things, and thus we needed a replacement for those. So these are just kind of like fun accent lights that again are RGB. So in case we do want to use them for some colored stuff, we can. As of now, they'll probably just remain on daylight, but I'll show a comparison before and after. And I think that they turned out pretty cool. So those are a good addition, and we can obviously use those at other places around the studio. In fact, I might even get more. The second thing that I was kind of, if I wanted to mention it or not, is that I actually did hire someone this year. So shouts out to Colton. Colton joined the team, I think in like July-ish time. 1, to help out with the podcasting stuff, but 2, to help out with my video production company. So he does more than just work at the studio, and he's part-time, so he's not quite like a full-time employee. Because if you listen to the beginning of the half, you realize I don't have money for that. But what he does is, one, on the sessions that I either can't attend or would rather be working on more important stuff, he will sit in and run it here while I'm working on my computer here, so I don't have to physically be there, which is great. And then two, which is the biggest part, he handles all the post-production stuff. So all the clips that we edit for people, all the full episodes that we edit for people, all of the kind of smaller editing jobs, now I just kind of funnel to him, which has been huge and a great thing. Obviously, I think I said in video one that if I had to take on the editing work that was going to be created by this business, I would have wanted to. Shouts out to Colton for being employee numero uno. Appreciate it. I know a lot of people that watch this either have a recording studio or their own video company, or are real estate agents, and they want to introduce something like this to just help offset the cost of owning it. I think this is like a great solution for that. I think it is something that will produce income. It'll help offset the cost of having it and running it, making you a little bit of money, and then obviously having a great space that you can use for your own business purposes, which is something that I did not take advantage of this year, but I think this next coming year is something we're gonna do. I'm gonna probably start up my own show. It probably won't be related to podcasting and this sort of stuff, but we'll see what it ends up being on, but I think that that'll be a good thing. One, to get people into the studio just to see. I think I'll probably end up interviewing local business owners and people that I have an interest in the local area. If they come clients, great. If not, I mean, it'll just be a good experience for me, and I'd probably love to host some of that content on this very channel. If you guys think that that would be something you'd be interested in, leave a comment down below and we'll think about it. Okay, so now if you've stuck around to this, I kind of want to just do an extended question and answer, pretty much from the last two videos. One thing that was a resounding question of the last video, at least part one, was what is that table and where can I buy it? And unfortunately, guys, I bought it secondhand and I bought it just the top only, and I had to buy other feet for it. That's the best I got for you. This is from Simple Tech Reviews. Can you do a video on what you think you would have done differently with the knowledge that you have now? And yeah, so I think one of the first things that I probably would have done differently is I probably, if I was solely going into this from the video podcasting perspective, I would have picked a different space to do it in. One, the space is a lot larger than it would actually need to be. It is not ideal for audio recording because just of the general nature of the room. But the worst thing kind of happened. When I moved into this unit, the building across from us, which actually we're attached to, we have basically a hallway that goes over the alley to another building. And when I moved in, it was vacant. They said it had been vacant a long time and there were no plans to renovate or do anything with it. It was just kind of a dead building. And so it was a very peaceful neighbor. Promptly, about a month and a half in, maybe 2 months, basically, the owner of this building too decided to buy that building and put in residential units. So for the last year, it has been under construction. And with that, there's been construction noises off and on pretty much throughout the entire duration of our stay. And it has put gray hairs on my head. Luckily, I don't think it affects the podcasting that much. I think it is far enough away from the microphones, and the way we have them set up is that they're really not, with noise gates and stuff like that, they're really not picking up a whole lot of extra stuff. But between miscellaneous street noises and the construction across the way that we didn't expect, we're obviously just in another commercial building. We have tenants above us, there's tenants below us, there's a gym in this building too. And some of that does leak into the unit. And again, whether it affects the recordings or not, it just drives me insane. And I think if I had to do it over, I would probably be a little bit more deliberate about picking a space that had a closed off room that could be acoustically treated a little bit better than what we can do here. I do run a video production company and this space is beautiful. I do love it and it works great for just about everything else. I don't think I'd be happy in a smaller space and I don't think I really need a bigger space at this time. So overall, I'd say I'm really happy with it, but I think my advice to people that are pursuing this is be very deliberate about where you pick and just make sure that you know that you're not gonna constantly have either construction or a gym underneath you or noisy tenants, because it will drive you insane. And obviously from just a customer service perspective, you don't want people looking at you funny because there's noise going on in their recording, right? So that is one of the big things that I would do differently. And then aside from that, I think hindsight's 20/20, but I think that the business did well enough, but I probably would have pushed it more. I think that my video production company had done pretty well. We had a great year with that. We had a great year doing this too, but My attention was split. Throughout the year, I ended up hiring somebody to help out again with both sides of the business, but I didn't push it as much as I probably should have. And now that I got the flow down, now that we have some reviews out, we have some clients and stuff like that, I think it's time to really start to push a little bit more. Cam Cove podcast, I said, thank you so much for putting your effort into making this content. Anyway, I have a concern about pricing. Do we need to list our gear that may help us get better clients? And so I think what you're asking is just like, if we had better gear, can we charge more and stuff like that? And I think that that's a fair point. And I think yes, to some degree, but I think also people get so drawn up in gear that you think it'll matter more than it actually does. So on the podcasting side, I don't think we've ever had a client call and be like, what mics do you have? Oh, I won't use those or anything like that, or really care anything about the intricacies of the tech side of stuff. Again, as you guys know, the cameras are kind of a hodgepodge. Nobody really bats an eye. And it's funny, even in my video production company, where you imagine there'd be a couple more people that are wanting to know specifics about stuff like that, the majority of them don't either. And so I think that'd be my advice to most people that maybe aren't doing something or afraid to charge more because of their gear, dude. I mean, the price is set by you, and I think the gear should not really factor in that much. If you do great work, it's not something you should worry about. All right, and this is from Real Estate Coaches TV. It says, how did you raise the money to build it? What would you suggest, going big or small, and then graduate into a bigger space? So as far as the startup stuff, I said in video one, a lot of that gear, I wanna say a lot of it, some of it was stuff that I currently owned because I had the video production stuff. So I had some cameras, I had some miscellaneous gear laying around. The other stuff was an investment on my end. I don't think total, it was probably like 6-7 grand worth of extra stuff that I had to buy. And so obviously that's a good chunk of money. I didn't, bootstrap, I didn't get investors or anything like that. That's to me a small enough amount of money that you could save it up and do it yourself. And so that's what I did. Again, I had a background before, and this was gonna be an extension of this business, not necessarily a whole brand new entity and stuff like that. So I self-funded it, and I think most people could at the same time. And I also think that depending on whether it's for you or for somebody else, there's ways to slowly progress in this, right? I think if you wanted to have a video podcasting studio, you can buy 2 pod mics, get 1 single camera, record the audio directly into the camera or something like that, and you could do a kind of ghetto setup for a lot less money just to get your foot in the door, and people would be willing to pay, get decent lighting, have decent audio, whether it's lavs or this and that. I definitely do think you can kind of graduate up. I think I bit off wanting to do it a little bit more just professional and good looking out the gate. But I think for most people, you definitely don't need to have that. All right, everybody, if you stuck around, huge shout out to you. Thank you guys so much. And I just wanna thank everyone that watched the videos, whether it was part 1, 2, and if you've made it to 3, that's even better. Before I was doing these, I had like 800 subscribers, and we're almost at 5,000 now, which is just huge to me, basically off of that one video. So thank you for everyone that supported me up until this point, and those that are subscribed onto the train, thank you. If you're not and you've made it to this point in the video, just subscribe, man. It's gonna be a good time. So everything that I put out, I try to be very deliberate, detailed, bigger picture stuff, just because that's just how I'm gonna be. And I'm actually really excited about doing more stuff like this. So if you haven't, please subscribe, because there's gonna be a lot more stuff like this coming.